Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot for April 22nd. So I thought today I would take a look at sort of the court system. So I want to take a look at the Supreme Court. I want to take a look at Reggie Watson. Is that his name? Because he should be looking at that unredacted Mueller report. So I want to take a look at that and see what's going on there. So yeah, let's just see if we can drill down a little bit on, Trump and the court system and what's going on. So that's kind of the question for the day. He's really good, right? He's just really good at figuring out how to drag stuff out and delay stuff. And now that he has he's had a lifelong history of that, right? He takes everybody to court and he sues them all over the place, and then he quietly settles, right? That's what he does. But now he has what he believes is his Supreme Court, right? Mitch McConnell worked very, very hard to get a whole lot of conservative judges in place. And so I think that he feels even more empowered to take it all the way to the top, because he sort of feels like, they're going to side with him simply by virtue of the fact that they're conservative. So let's just take a look at that and see what the story is. I think we'll start with the Supreme Court. If I have my timing right, they're going to be looking, I think it starts May 12th. I believe it's oral arguments start. Those arguments are going to be held like over the phone somehow, but they're going to be broadcast out. So typically you don't hear the closing arguments or the opening arguments or whatever they're called in the Supreme Court. But this is going to be sort of new, and you are going to have access to that. So that in and of itself is going to be really interesting. Part of me wonders how long they can actually delay sort of rendering judgment. Maybe they're hoping before they have to actually, make a ruling, maybe he'll be gone. I don't know. Come on down. Let's see. I have a question. Okay, so let's take a look first. I think we're going to look at the Supreme Court and Trump. So here we go. Supreme Court and Trump, Supreme Court and Trump, Supreme Court and Trump. Well, okay, since the first card out is the Tower, I'm thinking maybe he's not going to do so well. Okay. It definitely feels like things are not going to go as well for him as he expects. I almost want to say that when these arguments are being heard by many, many more people than normally would, there's going to be a little bit of, I almost want to use like stunned disbelief that they took it as far as they did, that they took it all the way to the Supreme Court, because in order for it to have gotten to the Supreme Court, all of the other courts had to have ruled in a way that he didn't like, right? And so they ruled that, yeah, he absolutely had to hand over that information. I'm pretty sure it was his tax returns. And he didn't like that, and so he kept taking it up to a different level, But it sounds like when the arguments are heard, for a lot of people, it's going to be the first time that they really get sort of an up-close look or listen to kind of the legal strategies, if you will, that swirl around him. And people are going to start really figuring out that the strategy isn't very smart, it's not very clever, and you know, they're just talking in circles and they're not saying anything of any significance. They're just wasting everybody's time. So it's going to be interesting because it feels sort of as if just people, just the average person, who of course for the most part is not working, and so they're home and they're going to be able to listen to this stuff and analyze it, you know, whatever it is, and it's really not going to look so good for him. So that just becomes again another black mark, if you will, against this presidency and against what he does and how he does it. But you know, it's interesting because I feel like somehow, and I don't know how, um, still like feeling my way through the energies here, but it feels like in some way, and it pains me to say this, that Trump is going to come out of that situation, certainly in May, feeling optimistic. So I think part of it is exactly actually what I sort of was muttering about earlier, that I think that the argument, the ruling might end up being pushed down far enough down the road that he sort of figures by then he'll have so many other things going on, so many other distractions he has created, that maybe it's just not going to get the attention that it typically would. So that's what these two cards are sort of showing me. Not that he's going to escape as much as there seems to be a bit of a delay of this thing, of him getting an answer quickly. And of course, the longer it gets delayed, the happier he is. I mean, that's his deal, right? He loves to run out the clock. He likes to, you know, he can't bounce it up to a higher court. So now the strategy, I guess, is just to drag this out as much as can be dragged out. And it is very possible that it might just get dragged out long enough that in the short term anyways, it might help him. And trust me, it pains me to say that. However, yeah, in the longer term, okay, his fortunes are going to undergo a bit of a change, and they're sitting over the tower, right? So those are not good. It's not a good change of fortunes. Okay, this is something that's going to go against him. And here you've got the sun in all its brilliant glory, basically saying, "Hey, you need to have this kind of transparency." And so ultimately, it feels as if the judgment will not be in his favor, but initially there's going to be some sort of a delay. Something's going to go on that's sort of just going to give him some breathing room, if you will. But there is, he's really worried actually about what might or might not come out, because there's a lot in those tax returns that are going to explain his business dealings. And you've got both the Two of Wands and the Three of Wands sitting here talking about commerce and business. And, you know, he's worried, right? He knows what's in there. He knows what they did. And it's causing him a lot of worry and concern. So again, as we move towards those initial arguments being laid out, expect to see a more agitated and aggressive Trump. I swear to you, I don't know how that's possible. Given the trajectory he is already on, you would think by the middle of May his head might have exploded, but apparently not. So there's definitely this sense that he has a lot of worry about it. He knows there's stuff in there that can really damage him. And, you know, Steve Mnuchin can only do so much. I mean, Steve Mnuchin can block the stuff that Treasury has, but it can't block the stuff that the banks have or the accountants have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, there's some high grade worry going on about that. And again, like I said, defensive, angry, you know, snarling, snapping, because that's what he does when he gets nervous and scared. Oh my. Yeah, okay, this isn't going to go well for him ultimately, but do brace yourself, because there's still that indicator that like there's going to be a delay. It's not like they hear it and then they render a decision in 48 hours, but it just somehow feels like that delay, whether it is longer than expected. But there's something that's going on there that just pleases him. But again, we're talking Trump here, right? So Trump will say or do anything to get out of the immediate moment in time. He doesn't have the capacity to think long term or to strategize. So as long as this gets pushed off for right now, he's perfectly content with that. But ultimately, it's just going to be more information that brings him down. And with the Empress sitting here, it's looking like that information is going to be rather abundant, and the government is going to be able to ultimately pass judgment. So I'm thinking it's not great for him, thinking it might be a bit of an issue. So we'll see. Now, in the interim, what I'm going to say is, again, watch out for that volatility from him. I've said this in other readings, and, honestly, nothing's changed, right? You are going to see more and more of it because more and more is he under attack, and he doesn't handle that so well. I mean, he just doesn't. And so you can expect more kind of nutty stuff, right? I mean, one of the latest is the whole immigration thing. Is what he is proposing to do legal? Probably not. But you know what? Again, he can just drag this thing out. And that's, again, shiny balls, right? I mean, he wants to distract. He wants to create confusion. And he keeps trying to find topics that are volatile enough that it will distract from the COVID-19 coverage, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why you see sort of the immigration thing he pulls. And what was the other one? Anyways, in the last day or two, there was another sort of really off the wall, and certainly the back to work, that push, and of course the protests, right? This is all part of, let's keep everybody confused, right? Let's keep moving the dialogue so that we can move it away from what's going on right now, all of the things that are being said and done that don't make me look amazing. Let's distract from them. Okay, so that is one of the court things. I want to take a look. So while we're on the Supreme Court, I want to take just a quick look at Kavanaugh and see what's in his sort of immediate future. So, Kavanaugh current, future, Kavanaugh current, future, Kavanaugh current, future. Okay, so to start with, it really doesn't matter what Kavanaugh does or almost doesn't do, because his name now has that asterisk beside it, and he's never, ever going to be able to escape that. And so, and years and years and years can go by, and you can even achieve sort of some respectability, okay? But it never, ever quite goes away. And it will get brought up over and over again throughout the course of his life. So there is already kind of, I want to say, that punishment that has been asserted over him and everything that went on. But of course, the real question is, are they going to, with a new government, are they going to try to impeach him because of just the blatant lies and everything that went on during that that hearing? And it's sort of an interesting energy that I'm getting. And I tell you why I'm getting this sort of mixed up energy. Part of the reason is that once you get Trump out of office, both the government, the new Justice Department, and frankly, the people, okay, the country as a whole, are going to have to figure out that fine line between clearing up something that didn't have a precedent, or sort of tightening those rules down, and ensuring that some of the stuff that happened doesn't happen again. But that needs to be balanced against sort of going to war and going after everybody who did wrong under the Trump administration. You know, frankly, somebody, as far as I'm concerned, somebody should be going after McConnell for not giving that Merrick Gordon guy a fair hearing. But, you know, just my humble Canadian opinion. So, like, I guess what I'm saying is, where do you draw the line? Like, if you're going to go after Trump and you're going to go after the Trump family, are you also then going to go after all of the other ones, you know, Pence and Barr and Mnuchin and Pompeo? Like, you know what I mean? Like, at some point, the government is going to have to focus on moving this thing forward. And I'm not saying he's going to get away with it, but I'm also feeling like somehow or another, it's like, it feels like it's going to get difficult for him, and it feels like they're going to come after him with, you know, some degree of movement and force. But you've got this card trying to balance the scales, trying to really assess what is important and what is not important, what takes you too close to a banana republic, and what sort of allows you to backpedal a bit. And so that seems to me that that's one of the questions that is going to need to be addressed, as I said, not only by a new administration, but by the people. And, you know, Trump has done a tremendous amount of damage and disservice to the United States. But at some point, in order to move forward, you have to move forward. And maybe you don't get to extract all of the revenge you might have liked. So I'm not sure. I'm not getting super clarity on that. But definitely it looks like, I don't know, maybe it's possible that there's an impeachment, but for some reason he manages to skate out of that. I'm just not sure. But I can tell you that his name is going to be forever muddied, and he's never quite, no matter what he does or how he does it, he's not ever going to be able to put the shine back on that which has been dulled. It's just not, it's not going to happen. So, yeah, I kind of, at this point, that it looks like that's where it's at. So I don't know if that's comforting to you or just annoying. But like I said, it feels like his good name, if he ever had one, has already been destroyed. And it feels like there may be like a balancing of the scales, but perhaps what I want to say is not as severe as people would really prefer it be. You know, but again, like I said, it doesn't matter what he does going forward. The name is destroyed, right? Just, I mean, it's just as simple as that. That's what happens when you are cocky and arrogant and you play with fire. Eventually, you get your fingers burned. Okay. Next, court-related look-see that I want to take. This one is about Judge Reggie Watson. So he is the one who demanded and received that unredacted Mueller report. And he is also the one that was very firm about letting William Barr know that he didn't think that Barr's conduct was appropriate and that it was way over the line of partisan. And so that's kind of, you know, interesting. So let's just see if we can get some sort of a read on what that's looking like, what he's thinking about it, what the result might be, and even when we might hear the result. So let's look at Watson, Mueller report, ruling. Watson, Mueller report, ruling. Watson, Mueller report, ruling. Excellent. Okay, well, there's judgment going to be passed. You know, when you're talking about the courts and the judgment is the first cart that flies out, you have to, you know, figure that he's not going to be quiet about it. At some point, he is going to, with a rather loud trumpet, he is going to announce his findings to the people, and we shall see if the people kind of end up rejoicing over this. Oh boy. Okay. The ruling is also going to shake the very foundation of the government and certain government officials and certain departments of the government. So, of course, Barr and the Attorney General's office and the Department of Justice, they're in for a really big shakeup. I gotta say, I think that Barr is probably going to retreat over this. He is another one whose name is absolutely going to be destroyed by his association with Trump. I don't know what it is with these apparently smart people who just become so enamored with this guy that they just lay down on the mud and say, sure, go ahead, walk over my back so you don't get your feet dirty. It's just unbelievable. But it definitely looks like the ruling is not in any way, shape, or form really going to be in the favor of the Justice Department or Barr, or I don't even know who's fighting this thing with. I guess it's the Justice Department who keeps pushing back on handing out redacted information. But what you're going to find is that it was so ridiculously, redacted. It literally was redacted with a big stick. Okay, so if there was a phrase or a word that they didn't like in a paragraph, well, they just got rid of the whole paragraph. It was that kind of heavy-handedness. And certainly as Judge Watson goes through, he's you get the feeling, or the energy feels like, yeah, he's going to get, oh my God, he's going to get sort of more annoyed and more aggravated over exactly what they not only tried to pull, but frankly did pull and got away with. And that is not going to, there's going to be, it's not going to be good. Okay, it's just not going to be good. There is that sense that this could very well be part of what really brings down the Justice Department, part of what really, really brings down Barr, and part of what I want to say sort of really puts another nail, if you will, in the coffin of the Trump presidency. Because again, The Mueller report was hard to read. I painfully went through all however many hundreds of pages that was, and it was really difficult reading. It was so dry that, but once more of it is redacted, I don't think people are going to rush out and try to reread the book. But what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of publicity around this. There's going to be a lot of talk around this. And it looks as if this is going to come out. I don't know court dates. I don't know how that works. But I feel like towards the end of summer for sure. It's not that it's going to come out then, but it feels like that is when the results, right? That is when things start coming out. That is when there seems to be a real pushback against the Justice Department and against Barr and against some of the stuff that was done. And it's going, I don't know, maybe it's ultimately going to be used in campaign ads against Trump. But there's definitely going to be some rocking and a shaking that goes on as this thing unfolds. And I almost want to say that Judge Watson appears to be a little bit reluctant to release it right now, to move forward on this. Because first of all, your country is already dealing with one major calamity because you have a completely inept president and administration trying to run the country. But you know what? It feels to me a little bit, just a little bit, like he's going to hang on to that thing until things just settle down a bit, because he actually wants people's perceptions to be changed. He wants them to be able to hear it and absorb it. And they can't do that if there isn't enough sort of airtime or exposure. And so it feels as if almost like he's just kind of waiting until things calm down a little bit. The other thing about sort of that sort of summary time period, it may very well be that is when the unredacted versions are handed over to the committees, right? For those committees that are Democratic-led to actually be able to review again the Mueller report. But it just doesn't feel like they're going to litigate the whole thing again, as much as in some ways it's going to be used to just continue to ramp up the exposure of the behavior. Okay. Yeah. And so it's like, you know what? This is the bottom line. This has been this whole situation has really been the Justice Department has not only done a lot of damage, like literal physical damage in terms of the ridiculous court cases, their stupid arguments that they go before judges with, all in this attempt to protect and defend the incompetency and the cruelty and the ignorance of the president. But they've lost reputation, they've lost standing, okay? And that has been a very, very hard blow, because it's not a good thing, right? It's not a good thing when there's a lack of confidence in the Justice Department, when the people who are working at all of those other agencies that have all those letters, like FBI and whoever, when they don't have sort of the confidence of the people by extension, right? So it's been very difficult for them. But you are being reassured that ultimately the rule of law is going to survive this onslaught. And ultimately, there is going to be a tempered or balance that comes to play as this thing gets sorted out. Yeah. And the hands that were tied, the things that were not seen, the things that were kept under wraps, ultimately end up being exposed. So again, this is another one of those situations where it might take a little bit of time. And again, there's going to need to be a little bit of a process to really figure out what is the most important stuff to correct or go after, as opposed to trying to get everything in. If they tried to do that, for goodness sakes, the government would have no energy or people or resources to try to fix all the other hundreds upon hundreds of things that have also been destroyed, not to mention with the fact that there's still going to be this virus to deal with and contend with, and an economy to try to get up and running again. So there's going to be a lot, and I think people should start considering tempering their expectations a little bit. If there's one thing that I think the last years have taught a lot of people, is that you don't get everything you want. Sometimes it's really hard to stop a steamroller. And when the steamroller gets stopped, sometimes you can't put back together everything that was rolled over and destroyed. And sometimes you just have to temper your expectation, because it's going to just be a long road to recovery. I mean, it really is. And I think people who are hoping or anticipating or even expecting that this whole thing is just going to, with snaps of a finger, just revert back, they're going to be in for a really bumpy road, because that's just sort of not the energy that I see. I see retribution, I see punishment, but I don't see it being the main driving force behind the new presidency. Certainly within departments, there's going to be a real huge push to clean things up, get things corrected, sort of start repairing reputations, not only internally within the agency, but in terms of the country, and frankly, in terms of global reputation. Okay, so that was my take on the courts and Trump and court cases and things that are coming up. So I hope you found that informative, helpful, and maybe gave you something to think about. I don't know. So before I say goodbye, a very quick thank you again to all of my new subscribers, all of my established ones. The donations are brilliant. I thank you so much for them. And again, if you're looking for a private reading, in the box below is an email address. Reach out to me through that email address and I will connect with you and give you the information. I am booking, I'm still booking actually fairly early in May. Okay, so until next time, take care. Be well. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.